Sitting upon the cold metal stool in the non-contact visitation room, I anxiously watch as my 3-year-old son Logan urgently searches for the door handle. He is seeking a way in which he might be able to reach me, but this visitation cubicle is for non-contact visitation only. It is basically a phone booth-size room, separated by a 3 by 3 foot plexiglass window. He's reaching out both arms, and I can see that he wants me to hold him in a hug, to comfort him, but I cannot, and it hurts. The frustration and disappointment he feels pours out through every aspect of his body language. My heart crumbles as I realize this is all my fault. His pain, his hurt, his confusion. This is my burden to bear today. I failed a drug test for marijuana and subsequently lost my contact visitation privileges for 6 months. During this very visit, I realized I was the source of Logan's unfathomable pain. In that moment, I determined to never act in such a way as to hurt my son again. Adapting to the incarcerated context can be quite difficult. We often feel the need to put family to the side in order to better cope with living in this environment. Many of the men I have encountered over the years have adopted the mentality that they are unable to be good fathers because of their incarceration. I fully acknowledge being a parent is a difficult task for anyone, and incarceration compounds these difficulties. But as with everything else in life, these difficulties can be overcome if an individual is willing and driven to do so. My name is Lucas Rash, and I am a father who is incarcerated. However, I have done my best over the years to assure that this potential barrier to fathering does not hinder my relationship with my wonderful son Logan. If you were to ask my son, he would say that I am a good father, perhaps the best. Sadly, this has not always been the case. But by examining what is truly important, prioritizing my son, and seeking to be there for him consistently, I have become the father that he needs. We must not lose sight of the fact that our children need loving and nurturing fathers as part of their lives. Therefore, I have made it my mission to help those fathers around me understand that with some effort they can become all that their children need them to be. My son Logan and I have had a long journey thus far, and what follows will explore some memories we have made and some of the lessons I've learned over these last 14 years. I hope the following words are an encouragement to some and motivation to others to take the necessary steps to become the father your children need you to be. This experience for Logan and I began at Alexander Correctional in 2011, when Logan was about 4 years old. Initially, it was difficult to try and bridge the gap between us. I was only around him face to face about twice a month for 2 hours at a time during visits. I loved him so much, but I was having a tough time figuring out how I could demonstrate that love to him in a meaningful way. One day during one of our family visits, I used a new and creative approach. I decided to try telling him stories, scary stories to be exact. The results that followed were amazing. He was enthralled, completely captivated, and excited. Moreover, he instantly fell in love with these stories. Recently, when asking Logan about his memories of the scary stories during visitation, he said, "I like them a lot, and it was good to come and see you tell scary stories." It got to the point during our visits where my parents and I could scarcely hold a conversation without Logan asking for another story. It was great. We were finally bonding in a meaningful way, and it felt so good to see the excitement on his face. This period of our lives was one of the more precious seasons we have had together over the years. As Logan got a little older, we began talking on the phone more frequently, and I began writing him more often. When we would talk to each other, I always made sure he knew that I loved him. I would tell him this, but I would also demonstrate it by being consistent in his life. In my letters, I would usually tell him about my day, what was going on with my job, workouts, studies, and other daily activities to better connect with him. But my main priority was always to learn about his day. I learned that it was also important to show enthusiasm when asking him about his day. I would ask how he was doing, how school was going, what his favorite classes were, what friends he had made, what activities they were doing together, and what sports he was interested in, among other topics. As we spoke each week, I was determined to build a stronger relationship with him, love him unconditionally, and grow with him one day at a time. Above all, it's important to understand that a genuine interest in your children's life is important. They can tell when you are really listening and if you actually care. I have a very creative imagination, and it has always served me well as I sought to connect with Logan. One such example of this creativity came about through the children's stories that I wrote for him. I figured that since Logan loved the scary stories so much, I could make an effort to capture that magic in booklet form. When you think of children's stories, most people think of traditional stories like the Three Little Pigs, Little Red Riding Hood, or other classic fairy tales. Those stories are great and classics for a reason, but this is not the type of stories that I wrote about. I came up with new stories, new characters, and wild plots unlike anything I had ever heard before. Unfortunately, I also illustrated some of them myself, and they were pretty rough looking as I had not learned to draw yet at this juncture of my life. But guess what? Logan absolutely loved them. Don't be intimidated. Create something interesting that will allow you to connect with your children. Odds are they're going to love it simply because it is from you. For example, one of the stories I wrote for Logan was about a banana that lived in a fruit bowl on top of the kitchen counter. Yet, every morning this banana became animated and walked around the house performing little pranks that would later be discovered by the family. In the end, we find out that this banana was actually a zombie wearing a zip-up banana costume. Talk about an unexpected twist. Yes, this and many of the other stories were very silly, but I was doing something to show my son that I loved him while also teaching him valuable lessons. Frequently, life lessons were fused into these stories. I sought to incorporate things like kindness, honesty, hard work, integrity, among other traits. These stories were simple things, written on folded paper that had been stapled together. But to this day, Logan still has every single one of them. When Logan was about 10 years old, I began reading the Bible and praying with him over the phone more regularly. We had began praying together as a family at our visits for years, but he was getting older now, and I figured that he could start reading the Bible with me as well. I would read him a few verses that I had been studying, and then relay the lessons I had been learning and why these lessons were impactful for me. To this day, we still spend time together regularly reading the Bible over the phone, discussing it, and praying together. I have found that if something is important to me, then I should share it with Logan. During this period of our life, I was afforded an amazing opportunity to baptize Logan inside the prison. This is a magnificent program called One Day with God, which was started by a wonderful woman named Scotty Barnes. This program brings children and their fathers together for an entire day within the prison. Games are played, food is eaten, and lots of meaningful time is spent together during this incredible day. At this particular event, it was arranged so that my pastor was able to lead me through the process of baptizing Logan. This moment was another special one that Logan and I can share for as long as we live. Education is another foundational part of Logan's life and something that is equally important to me. Therefore, I have always expressed an interest in his schooling. This has become more of a focus now that he is in high school. I am also happy to say that Logan has been a stellar student, with the exception of a tough freshman year in high school. Speaking about the tough freshman year, Logan had multiple instances where he was involved in trouble and had to seriously consider the consequences of his actions. He became involved with the wrong crowd and acted out in ways he normally wouldn't have. Fortunately, Logan learned some valuable lessons from the trouble he got into. I also believe that this minor trouble will help him avoid major trouble in the future. Today, he is a junior who is enrolled in honors chemistry and Spanish, among other classes, and I'm happy to say he actually enjoys them. Logan is growing into a smart and respectful young man, and I am so very proud of him. Over the years, I have been very honest with Logan about the poor choices I have made in my past and the consequences that followed. Some parents may argue that as the authority you simply should tell the child or teenager what to do. I came to believe that this ideal was completely unrealistic. Instead, I determined to be open and forthcoming with Logan about many of my mistakes in life. However, these conversations always came with an explanation of what the consequences were, why the decisions were wrong in the first place, and my acknowledgement that he was grown enough to make his own choices. I knew Logan was going to make mistakes, but I hoped that if I taught him what was right and explained the consequences clearly, then perhaps he would do what was right. Logan had recently shared with me that those conversations helped me to understand things better and see that I did not want to go down that path, a path full of trouble. We all hope that our children make the right choices, but these decisions belong to them, as we cannot make them do what we want. I sincerely believe that if we have more of a conversation with them about rules and choices instead of just giving them directives or prohibitions, then they will feel more respected for being involved, and in turn will be more likely to make the correct decision themselves. One of the hardest questions that Logan has asked me over the years came when he said, "When are you coming home, Daddy?" Again, I found that being honest with him is the best approach. Logan was about 5 years old when he first began asking me this. At the time, it was 2012, and I still had about 45 years remaining on my sentence. How am I supposed to accurately convey this length of time to a 5-year-old? When Logan asked this, I told him that I will be coming home to you one day and that I loved you very much. He asked me this question more times than I can recall as he grew up, and each time it hurt in an unimaginable way, but my response has always been the same. As we near 2025, Logan will be turning 17 next month. He doesn't ask me when I'm getting out anymore. This is partially because he is old enough to look this information up himself, and partially because he now understands the significance of a 2055 release date. Sometimes when things in life are hard for Logan, perhaps after he has had a tough day, I still seek to comfort him by saying that, "This will all end one day, son, and I love you so very much." Sometimes simply expressing my love is all I am able to do. Raising a child can seem like an impossible task, but it's one with an infinitely greater importance. At the end of the day, all any of us can do is put our entire heart into it, one day at a time. Parenting during one's incarceration comes with its own unique set of complications, but it can still be done. Regardless of your child's age, the distance between you both, the lack of any existing relationship, or the number of unknowns between you and your child, you can still be there for them. Please hear this. You can be a good father or mother. You must simply decide to take action and do what you are able to do to be a part of their lives. If you can visit with them, then visit and build with them. If you can only write them, then write like it's the most important thing you do. Even if you cannot be sure they're receiving the letters, keep writing. They could still receive them one day. Taking steps to be involved and show that you care is of utmost value, and it will touch their hearts more than you will ever know. Our children look up to us and they need us, so be the example they need you to be and be there for them. Being Logan's father has been one of the most precious blessings I have ever received in life. We have grown so close over the years and created so many lasting memories together that we will share forever. It has not always been easy, but every moment has been totally and unequivocally worth it. Logan is a good kid, and he is quickly developing into a respectful young man. He is proof that our effort in parenting matters, and that being a good father can actually make a difference in your own child's life.